Have you ever looked around and felt as though life was moving forward, but somehow you were standing still? Maybe you see friends reaching milestones, achieving dreams, building lives that seem so far ahead of where you are right now. And in those quiet moments, late at night, or in the solitude of your own mind, you wonder, am I falling behind? Did I miss my chance? Why does life seem to flow so easily for others, but not for me? If these questions have ever touched your heart, know that you are not alone. This is a very human experience, one the Buddha understood deeply. Today, we will explore his timeless wisdom, gentle, compassionate teachings that can help you find peace amidst the feelings of being left behind. Together, we'll journey beyond comparison, beyond self-judgment, and into a deeper understanding of what it truly means to walk your own path in this life. So take a deep breath, settle your mind, and let us begin. There are moments in life when you look around and feel as if the world is moving forward without you. Friends are getting promotions, starting families, achieving dreams. On social media, it seems like everyone has their life together. And yet, here you are, stuck, unsure, perhaps even lost. In these quiet moments, the feeling of being left behind can weigh heavily on the heart. It whispers questions in the back of your mind. Why is everyone ahead of me? What did I do wrong? Will I ever catch up? This experience is far more common than we might think. In truth, almost everyone has had these moments at some point in life. They simply don't speak of them openly. There is a quiet shame in feeling as though you've fallen behind the flow of life. We compare ourselves to others, to timelines that were never meant for us, to expectations crafted by society or family, and to our own younger self's visions of the future. And when reality does not match these imagined milestones, we feel pain, self-doubt, and sometimes even despair. But if the Buddha were here, sitting across from you at this very moment, seeing the burdens in your heart, what would he say? The teachings of the Buddha have long illuminated the nature of suffering, the root causes of our distress, and the way to inner freedom. And on this matter, on the feeling of being left behind, his wisdom offers gentle guidance. Not of blame or correction, but of deep compassion and understanding. First, the Buddha would remind you that the human experience is, by its very nature, marked by dukkha. This is often translated as suffering, but more accurately, it refers to the unsatisfactoriness of life, the craving for things to be different, for life to match our expectations, creates the seeds of our discontent. It is not wrong to have hopes and dreams. The heart naturally aspires, but when those aspirations harden into rigid timelines, when we believe life must unfold in a certain way, by a certain age, we create unnecessary suffering for ourselves. The Buddha taught the truth of impermanence, anicca. All things, without exception, arise, change, and fade away. No state, no success, no failure, no position in life is permanent. The wheel of life turns ceaselessly. Understanding this, the idea of being left behind begins to soften. Life is not a race. There is no finish line we are meant to cross at the same time as others. Each person's path is shaped by their unique causes and conditions, karma that stretches back through lifetimes, and conditions of the present that we may not fully see or understand. Imagine standing beside a river. The current carries leaves downstream at different speeds. Some drift swiftly, some slowly, some swirl in eddies before moving on. None of the leaves are doing anything wrong. They are simply following the natural flow of the water. In the same way, our lives unfold in the rhythm that is uniquely ours. When you feel behind in life, it is often because you are looking sideways, comparing your path to that of others. This comparing mind is deeply conditioned. We have been taught since childhood to measure ourselves in relation to our peers, to see life as a ladder or race, But the Buddha would gently ask, what happens when you let go of comparison? When you truly turn your gaze inward and walk your own path? Step by mindful step? Comparison clouds the heart. It creates a false narrative that others are ahead while you are behind. But ahead of what? Behind what? These are concepts that the mind constructs. In reality, there is only this present moment, this breath, this step. You are not late for your own life. You are exactly where you are meant to be, given all that has come before. The Buddha often spoke of patience, khanti, as a powerful virtue. Not the passive waiting of frustration, but a deep, abiding trust in the unfolding of life. Sometimes, our most profound growth happens not in times of visible progress, but in the quiet periods of seeming stillness. The seed in the soil takes time to sprout. There are seasons for flowering, and seasons for resting beneath the earth. If we judge our worth only by the blossoms, we miss the deeper cycles of life. There is also the matter of unseen karma. Each person's journey is shaped by countless actions, intentions, and experiences across many lifetimes. Some causes bear fruit quickly, others slowly. Just because someone appears to have worldly success now does not mean their path is without hardship or that their inner life is peaceful. And just because your life feels slow in this moment does not mean that great beauty and fulfillment are not on the horizon. The Buddha would also remind you of the danger of self-judgment. When we feel left behind, it is common to blame ourselves. We may think, I am not good enough, or I have failed. These thoughts are natural, but they are not the truth. They arise from the conditioned mind, not from the wisdom of your heart. The Buddha taught that all beings possess Buddha nature, the potential for awakening, for compassion, for inner freedom. Your worth is not determined by achievements, timelines, or the approval of others. It is intrinsic. It shines within you, even in moments of doubt. Perhaps, if the Buddha were sitting with you now, he would tell you a story. In the Pali Canon, there is a story of a monk who struggled greatly in his practice, while others seemed to advance quickly, reaching stages of enlightenment. This monk found himself falling behind. Despite years of effort, he had not attained the insight he sought. One day, overcome with discouragement, he considered leaving the monastic life. The Buddha, knowing the monk's heart, approached him and spoke gently. He reminded the monk of a past life, when he had been a farmer. The farmer, though diligent, had neglected to properly prepare the soil one season. As a result, his crops that year grew slowly. Yet in time, with care and patience, the earth yielded a bountiful harvest. The Buddha told the monk, "Your efforts are not wasted. Conditions take time to ripen. Continue with faith and perseverance." In this way, the Buddha encouraged patience, self-kindness, and trust in the path. The story reminds us, our progress may not always be visible, but that does not mean it is absent. Growth often happens beneath the surface, unseen. So if today you feel left behind, know this: it is only a story the mind is telling. You are not behind. You are living your life in accordance with causes and conditions that are uniquely yours. Release the burden of comparison. Tend gently to your own heart. Walk your path with mindfulness and compassion. The Buddha might also remind you to reconnect with gratitude. Often, when we feel left behind, our attention narrows to what is lacking. We see only what we do not have. But each life, including yours, holds moments of beauty, kindness, and meaning. Pause. Breathe. Notice the simple blessings that surround you. The warmth of the sun on your skin, the smile of a friend, the quiet moments of peace. These are not small things. They are life itself. Lastly, the Buddha would encourage you to cultivate metta, loving kindness, toward yourself. When we feel behind, we often turn harsh words inward. I should be more. I should do more. But what if you spoke to yourself as a dear friend would? With kindness, patience, and understanding, you are doing the best you can in this moment. And that is enough. Remember, in the vast flow of time, what matters is not the pace of your journey, but the quality of your heart. Move through life with compassion. Trust the unfolding. Your path is yours alone, and it is sacred. This is what the Buddha might say if he were sitting with you now. Not as a distant, untouchable figure, but as a compassionate teacher, seeing your humanity with deep understanding. May these words bring you a little peace, a little light, and the strength to walk your path with renewed grace. To begin understanding the feeling of being left behind, the Buddha would likely encourage us first to look deeply at how we define this experience. What does it truly mean to be left behind? Is it an objective reality? Or is it something created within our own minds? Most of the time, the sense of being behind in life is not a fact, but a story. It is a narrative shaped by comparing our lives to others and by measuring ourselves against imagined expectations. The root of this story often lies in craving and attachment. The Buddha identified craving, tanha, as the principal cause of suffering. It is the thirst for life to be a certain way. It is the longing for experiences, status, achievements, or recognition. And when reality does not align with these desires, suffering arises. You may notice that when you feel behind, it is almost always in relation to some imagined timeline. You believe that by a certain age or point in life, you should have reached particular milestones. Perhaps you think you should have a successful career, a partner, a family, financial stability, a certain level of spiritual development, or even a particular state of inner peace. These expectations are deeply conditioned by culture, family, and society. They are often so ingrained that we rarely stop to question them. The Buddha's teachings offer a way to liberate ourselves from this conditioned thinking. One of the central principles in Buddhism is the concept of dependent origination, or paticca samuppada. It teaches that all phenomena arise in dependence upon causes and conditions. Nothing exists independently. No one's life unfolds in isolation from the countless factors, seen and unseen, that shape it. This means that your life is not simply the result of your willpower or decisions in this moment alone. It is the unfolding of a vast network of causes, your karma from past actions, your upbringing, your environment, your culture, and many factors beyond your conscious control. The same is true for others. When you see someone achieving something you desire, remember that their path has also been shaped by countless conditions. You cannot truly know the full story behind their journey, just as they cannot fully know yours. In this light, the idea of being left behind begins to dissolve. How can one be behind when there is no fixed race? Life is not a linear track where everyone runs side by side toward the same finish line. It is a vast, interconnected web of experiences, with each being following their own path through countless lifetimes. The Buddha would also point out the illusion of permanence that underlies our suffering. We often believe that current circumstances will last forever. If we feel behind now, we think we will always feel this way. If someone else appears ahead, we assume they will remain ahead. But in truth, all things are impermanent. The Pali word anicca captures this truth. All conditioned things are subject to change. There are countless stories from the Buddha's time that illustrate this point. One such story is of a wealthy merchant who lost everything through a series of unfortunate events. In his despair, he approached the Buddha. The Buddha reminded him that wealth, like all things, is impermanent. It arises and passes away according to conditions. The same is true for success, failure, status, relationships, and even life itself. Knowing this, we can meet both fortune and misfortune with equanimity. If you feel left behind, it may help to reflect on impermanence. The circumstances of your life, as they are now, are not fixed. They will change, Your efforts, even if they seem fruitless now, will bear fruit in time. The Dharma teaches us to trust in the natural unfolding of causes and conditions. By practicing patience and steady effort, we align ourselves with this truth. Another important aspect the Buddha would likely highlight is the danger of identification. We often fuse our sense of self with the idea of being left behind. We think, I am a failure, or I am not good enough. But in Buddhism, the concept of anatta, or non-self, reminds us that this sense of a fixed, unchanging self is an illusion. Our identity is not a solid thing. It is a process, a collection of ever-changing physical and mental phenomena. When you recognize that the I who feels left behind is itself impermanent and conditioned, you begin to loosen your grip on these painful thoughts. You can see them for what they are, passing mental states, not truths about who you are. The Buddha encouraged mindfulness as a way to develop this insight. By observing your thoughts and feelings with awareness and non-attachment, you create space between yourself and the narratives that cause suffering. In meditation, you might notice how the thought, I am behind in life, arises. If you observe it without judgment, you will see that it is simply a thought, impermanent, insubstantial. It comes and goes like a cloud drifting across the sky. You do not have to believe it or identify with it. This is a profound liberation. Furthermore, the Buddha would remind you of the value of right view, seeing things as they truly are. Right view involves understanding the nature of suffering, its causes, and the path to its cessation. Part of right view is recognizing that happiness and suffering do not depend solely on external achievements or comparisons with others. True well-being arises from within, from the cultivation of wisdom, ethical conduct, and mental discipline. There are many people who, by worldly standards, appear successful but are inwardly restless and dissatisfied. And there are those who live simply, without outward achievement, yet dwell in great peace and joy. The Buddha taught that the highest happiness is not dependent on external conditions, but on inner freedom. When you understand this, the urgency to measure your life against others begins to fade. It is also helpful to reflect on the nature of karma. The results of our actions, both wholesome and unwholesome, ripen in their own time. Sometimes the fruits of good actions may not appear immediately. The Buddha used the image of a seed. Some seeds sprout quickly, while others take time to germinate. Trust that your efforts to live skillfully, to practice kindness, generosity, mindfulness, and wisdom, will bear fruit, even if you do not yet see the results. Patience is essential on this path. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha says, patient endurance is the supreme practice. This patience is not passive resignation, but an active trust in the unfolding of life. It is the willingness to meet each moment as it is, without grasping or resistance. When you embody this patience, the feeling of being left behind loses its power. You understand that your life is unfolding at the pace it needs to. The Buddha would also encourage you to cultivate compassion for yourself and for others. Self-compassion is especially important when facing feelings of inadequacy or failure. It means recognizing your own suffering and responding with kindness rather than harshness. It means allowing yourself to be human, with all your imperfections and struggles. In practicing compassion, you also come to see that others, too, carry hidden burdens. The person who seems ahead in life may be facing their own private difficulties. By opening your heart to the common humanity we all share, you move from comparison to connection. You no longer see life as a competition, but as a shared journey where each being walks their own path. Finally, the Buddha might remind you of the preciousness of this present moment. The more we focus on imagined futures or on the lives of others, the more we miss the richness of here and now. The breath in your body, the sounds around you, the beating of your heart, this is life. When you bring mindful attention to this moment, you touch a freedom that is always available, regardless of your circumstances. In sum, the feeling of being left behind is a story born of craving, attachment, and comparison. The Buddha's teachings invite us to see through this story, to rest in the truth of impermanence, non-self, and the law of karma. They encourage us to cultivate patience, compassion, and mindful presence. In doing so, we free ourselves from the suffering of comparison and awaken to the unique beauty of our own path. Your life is not late. It is not wrong. It is simply unfolding. Trust in this unfolding. Walk your path with gentle perseverance and an open heart. This is the way of the Dharma. This is the wisdom the Buddha would offer you today. One of the most significant roots of the suffering that arises when we feel left behind in life comes from the deeply conditioned habit of comparison. The mind constantly compares our own situation to the lives of others, to ideals we have absorbed, or to the imagined version of where we thought we would be. The Buddha understood this tendency well. He taught that the mind, when left untrained, has a restless nature, grasping for what it does not have and resisting what is present. When you look at others and see them seemingly ahead, thriving in their careers, relationships, finances, spiritual practice, it is easy to believe that you are lacking, that you are somehow failing. Yet the Buddha would remind us that these comparisons are not reflections of truth. They are mental fabrications that distort our perception. Every life is shaped by unique causes and conditions. What you see on the surface is never the full story. Often, our comparing mind operates automatically. We scroll through images of others' lives, or we hear news of someone's success, and without conscious awareness, a voice arises. Why am I not there yet? What is wrong with me? This voice, though seemingly our own, is the voice of conditioned craving. It pulls us out of the present moment and into a world of imagined lack. The Buddha taught that clinging to this kind of comparison leads to dukkha, or suffering. It strengthens the illusion of a solid self that must constantly prove its worth. It feeds restlessness and dissatisfaction. Instead of resting in the peace of what is, the mind becomes trapped in the endless pursuit of becoming, always chasing a future self that seems just out of reach. An essential part of Buddhist practice is to become aware of this tendency with mindfulness. When you notice the urge to compare, you can pause and gently ask, is this helpful? Is this bringing peace to my heart? You can observe the comparing thought as just that, a thought, not a truth. In doing so, you begin to loosen its grip. It is important to remember that appearances can be deceiving. The Buddha often pointed out that external appearances do not reflect inner freedom. A person may seem outwardly successful but inwardly tormented by anxiety, fear, or loneliness. Conversely, one who appears to have little by worldly standards may abide in deep peace and contentment. The true measure of well-being is not found in status or possessions but in the quality of the heart and mind. This is why the Buddha emphasized the cultivation of inner virtues over external achievements. Generosity, kindness, ethical conduct, patience, and wisdom. These are the qualities that bring lasting happiness. They are not dependent on circumstances or comparisons. They are available to everyone, in every moment. It is also helpful to reflect on the interconnectedness of all beings. When we fall into comparison, we often isolate ourselves. We think in terms of me versus them. But the Buddha taught that all life is interdependent. We are all part of a vast web of causes and conditions. Others' success does not diminish your worth, nor does it determine your value. Each person's path is unique. Each unfolds in its own time and way. When you truly understand this, you can begin to rejoice in the happiness of others rather than envy it. This is the practice of mudita, or sympathetic joy. It is one of the 4 immeasurables the Buddha encouraged us to cultivate. When you feel joy for the good fortune of others, your own heart becomes lighter. The chains of comparison loosen, and a sense of connectedness and goodwill grows. At first, this may not come easily. The habit of envy and comparison is deeply ingrained. But with practice, you can train the mind toward joy and compassion. Each time you notice a comparing thought, pause, breathe, offer a silent wish. May they be happy. May I also find peace. Over time, this simple practice transforms the heart. Another dimension of this suffering lies in the attachment to fixed identities. We tend to construct an image of ourselves. I am someone who should have accomplished X by now. When life unfolds differently, the discrepancy between this imagined self and reality creates pain. The Buddha would remind us that all such identities are impermanent and empty. They are mental constructs, not fixed truths. By releasing the attachment to these identities, we open to the fluid nature of life. We recognize that our worth is not tied to roles, titles, or achievements. It is intrinsic. It does not need to be earned or proven. The Buddha's teaching on anatta, or non-self, invites us to see through the illusion of a solid, separate self. In doing so, we find greater freedom and peace. In meditation, you might reflect, who is this I that feels left behind? Where is this self located? As you inquire deeply, you may discover that what seemed so solid is in fact a flow of changing experiences, thoughts, feelings, sensations, all arising and passing away. This insight brings relief. It allows us to hold the ups and downs of life more lightly. It is also valuable to consider that growth and progress are not always visible. Sometimes, the most profound transformations happen beneath the surface. Like a seed germinating in the dark soil, your efforts to cultivate mindfulness, compassion, and wisdom may not show immediate outward results. Yet they are preparing the ground for future flowering. The Buddha used many nature metaphors to illustrate this truth. He spoke of the slow ripening of fruit, the patient unfolding of a lotus blossom. Not all things bloom at the same time. Trust in the process. Know that your path, though different from others, is unfolding as it must. In moments when you feel discouraged, it can be helpful to turn your attention to the present moment. The breath, the body, the sensations of now, these are always available as anchors. They remind you that life is not found in imagined comparisons but here. In this moment, by returning to the present with mindfulness, you reconnect with the reality of your own life. The Buddha also emphasized the importance of wise reflection. When faced with difficult emotions, instead of reacting impulsively, take time to reflect. What is the cause of this suffering? What views or attachments are feeding it? Through honest inquiry, you gain insight into the patterns of the mind. This is the beginning of freedom. In truth, there is no single timeline for life. There is no universal measure of success. The standards we often compare ourselves to are arbitrary, shaped by culture and convention. The Buddha's path leads beyond these illusions to a deeper, more authentic way of being. Ultimately, the greatest freedom comes from letting go of comparison, letting go of fixed identities, letting go of the need to be ahead. When you release these burdens, you discover a spaciousness within. You are free to live your own life, to honor your unique journey. The Buddha's teachings are an invitation to this freedom. They remind us that true happiness is not found in the opinions of others or in external achievements but in the cultivation of a wise and compassionate heart. In walking this path, you will find that the feeling of being left behind loses its power. You will see that you are exactly where you need to be. In this moment, on this path, with patience, mindfulness, and compassion, you can meet each step of your journey with peace. This is the way of the Dharma. This is the wisdom the Buddha offers when you feel left behind by life. If we look more deeply into the feeling of being left behind, we start to see that much of this experience arises from misunderstanding the true nature of life. One of the most compassionate teachings the Buddha offered is that each being moves through life shaped by their own unique karma and conditions. In the West, people often speak of destiny or luck, but in the Buddha's understanding, what we call destiny is in fact the natural unfolding of karma, the sum of our actions, intentions, and experiences over countless lifetimes. Karma is not a system of punishment or reward. It is simply the law of cause and effect. Every thought, word, and deed plants seeds that eventually bear fruit. Some seeds ripen quickly, others take years, or even lifetimes, to manifest. The pace at which each person's life unfolds cannot be forced or compared. Imagine two trees planted on the same day. One may shoot up tall within a single season. Another may grow more slowly, developing deep roots that are unseen for years before it blossoms. Would we say that the slower growing tree is failing? Of course not. It is simply following its own nature, shaped by countless unseen factors: the soil, the weather, the strength of its roots. So too with human lives. Many times, when we feel left behind, it is because we are not fully aware of these unseen causes and conditions. We look only at the surface and wonder why our lives do not match those of others. But the Buddha taught us to see more deeply, to recognize that life is not as simple or linear as it appears. There are karmic debts to be resolved, lessons to be learned, and qualities of heart to be cultivated, each in their own time. In one of the sutras, the Buddha shared a story of two monks who entered the Sangha on the same day. One of the monks quickly attained deep levels of concentration and insight. The other struggled, feeling left behind and discouraged. The Buddha, seeing the suffering in his heart, explained that this difference was not a matter of worth or effort, but of past karma. The monk who progressed quickly had cultivated wisdom in many past lives. The one who struggled was planting new seeds in this life, which would surely bear fruit in time. This story offers us a profound perspective. When we feel behind, it does not mean we are failing. It may simply mean that we are laying the groundwork for future growth. The Buddha would gently remind us that the process of spiritual and personal unfolding cannot be rushed. Each life is unique. Each person's journey is shaped by their own past and present conditions. Moreover, trying to force life to conform to our expectations only deepens our suffering. The Buddha described how clinging to desires and fixed views leads to dukkha, the pervasive dissatisfaction that arises when we resist the way things are. When we release this clinging, when we accept that our lives are unfolding just as they need to, we create the space for peace and joy to arise. One of the qualities the Buddha praised most highly is patience, or khanti. This is not a passive resignation but an active acceptance, a willingness to be present with life as it is. Patience allows us to meet each moment with an open heart, without demanding that it be different. In cultivating patience, we begin to let go of the anxiety that comes from comparing ourselves to others. Patience also nurtures humility. We recognize that we do not always know what is best for us in this moment. What seems like a delay may in fact be a necessary pause, a time of inner growth that will serve us in the future. The Buddha taught that wisdom arises not from controlling life but from understanding it. Through patient observation, we see the truth of impermanence, interdependence, and non-self. We learn to flow with life rather than against it. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha says, "Like a solid rock is not shaken by the wind, the wise are not moved by praise or blame. In the same way, the wise are not shaken by the apparent progress or success of others. They remain steady, grounded in their own path. They understand that each being's journey is shaped by countless factors beyond what the eye can see." When you find yourself feeling left behind, It can be helpful to remember this teaching. Ask yourself, what seeds am I planting today? Am I cultivating patience, compassion, mindfulness, and wisdom? These are the qualities that truly matter. External achievements may come and go, but the development of the heart endures beyond this life. The Buddha also encouraged us to reflect on the preciousness of our human birth. In the vast cycles of samsara, the endless rounds of birth and death, it is rare and precious to be born as a human being with the opportunity to practice the Dharma. Regardless of where you feel you are in life, the very fact that you have this opportunity is a cause for deep gratitude. Gratitude shifts the mind from lack to abundance. When you cultivate gratitude for the blessings you do have, the breath in your body, the capacity for awareness, the chance to learn and grow, you weaken the grip of comparison. You begin to see that life is already rich, even if it does not look the way you expected. Another helpful practice is to focus on the intention behind your actions rather than the results. In the West, people often judge success by outcomes, titles, wealth, recognition, but the Buddha taught that what truly matters is the purity of our intentions. When we act with kindness, generosity, and wisdom, we create positive karma, regardless of the external outcome. By shifting your focus from results to intentions, you free yourself from the need to measure up to others. You can rest in the knowledge that each kind word, each mindful breath, each moment of compassion contributes to the unfolding of goodness in your life. In time, these seeds will bear fruit. Finally, the Buddha might remind you that your worth is not something you need to earn. It is intrinsic, rooted in your very nature as a sentient being. In Mahayana teachings, this is often called Buddha nature, the inherent capacity for awakening that exists within all beings. No one is more worthy or less worthy based on their achievements or failures. We all possess this basic goodness. When you remember this, the pressure to compare and compete begins to dissolve. You can rest more fully in who you are, trusting that your path is unfolding in its own perfect time. The feeling of being left behind loses its power because you see that there is, in truth, no race, no competition. There is only life, flowing moment by moment, inviting you to meet it with an open heart. As you continue walking this path, may you find patience for yourself and for others. May you trust in the wisdom of your own unfolding. And may you remember that, in the eyes of the Buddha, you are never behind. You are simply here, in this moment, exactly where you need to be. When life brings the feeling of being left behind, the Buddha would encourage us to turn inward and cultivate the qualities of mind and heart that lead to true peace. The teachings of the Buddha are not about quick fixes or external achievements. They offer us a path of inner transformation, a way to meet life as it is with wisdom and compassion. One of the first steps in this transformation is learning to develop mindfulness. The Buddha taught that mindfulness is the gateway to freedom. It allows us to see our experiences clearly, without the distortions of craving, aversion, or delusion. When we practice mindfulness, we can begin to observe the thoughts and feelings that arise when we feel left behind. We can see how these thoughts are conditioned, how they come and go, and how they are not who we truly are. Mindfulness helps us create space between ourselves and the stories the mind tells. Instead of being swept away by the thought, "I am failing," or "I am not enough," we can recognize it as just a thought, impermanent, insubstantial. We can meet it with curiosity and kindness rather than judgment or resistance. This simple shift begins to free us from the grip of comparison. Alongside mindfulness, the Buddha would encourage us to cultivate loving kindness, or metta. This is a quality of heart that wishes for the well-being of oneself and others. When we feel left behind, it is easy to fall into self-criticism or envy. But metta invites us to meet these painful feelings with compassion. It reminds us that we are not alone in our struggles. All beings experience moments of doubt, disappointment, and longing. The practice of metta begins with ourselves. We can offer ourselves simple phrases of kindness. May I be well. May I be at peace. May I trust in the unfolding of my life. These words may feel unfamiliar at first, but with time, they can soften the heart and ease the pain of self-judgment. From there, we can extend metta to others, including those we might envy. When we wish happiness for those who seem ahead of us, we transform comparison into connection. We recognize our shared humanity. We dissolve the illusion of separation. This practice not only benefits others but also frees our own heart from bitterness and resentment. The Buddha also taught the importance of right effort. When we feel left behind, it is easy to fall into discouragement or passivity. We may think, what is the point of trying? But right effort is about finding a balanced path. It is not about striving or forcing, but about nurturing wholesome qualities in a steady, sustainable way. Right effort involves 4 key aspects: preventing unwholesome states from arising, abandoning unwholesome states that have arisen, cultivating wholesome states, and maintaining those wholesome states. In the context of feeling left behind, this might mean being mindful of the thoughts that fuel envy or self-criticism and gently letting them go. It means nurturing patience, kindness, and contentment, even when progress seems slow. One of the most helpful qualities to cultivate is equanimity. This is the ability to remain balanced and at peace in the face of life's ups and downs. The Buddha often described equanimity as the pinnacle of spiritual maturity. It is not indifference, but a deep, steady wisdom that understands the nature of impermanence and karma. When we develop equanimity, we are less shaken by the apparent success or failure of ourselves or others. We understand that all things arise and pass according to conditions. We trust the unfolding of life without grasping or resisting. This allows us to meet each moment with openness and ease. The Buddha also emphasized the importance of community, or sangha. When we feel left behind, it is easy to isolate ourselves. We may think that we are the only ones struggling, that others would not understand. But in truth, suffering is a universal part of the human experience. We all face challenges, doubts, and setbacks. By connecting with others on the path, we can find support and encouragement. We can share our experiences honestly and listen with compassion. The Sangha offers us a mirror, helping us see that we are not alone. It reminds us that progress is not always visible, that growth often happens in unseen ways. In moments of doubt, it can be helpful to remember the Buddha's own story. Before his enlightenment, he spent years in intense spiritual practice. He faced many obstacles, including self-doubt and physical hardship. At times, he too may have wondered if he was falling behind. But through perseverance, mindfulness, and compassion, he continued on the path. His example reminds us that even great beings face difficulties, and that patience and steady effort can lead to profound transformation. The Buddha's teachings also invite us to reflect on the nature of true success. In a world that often measures worth by external achievements, the Dharma points us to a deeper truth. The greatest success is not found in wealth, status, or accolades, but in the freedom of the heart. It is in the capacity to meet life with wisdom, compassion, and equanimity. When we remember this, the urgency to compare ourselves to others begins to fade. We see that each act of kindness, each moment of mindfulness, each breath taken with awareness is a step on the path of awakening. We trust that our efforts, however small, are meaningful and valuable. In this way, the feeling of being left behind becomes an opportunity for growth. It invites us to deepen our practice, to cultivate patience, to connect with others, and to remember what truly matters. It reminds us that the path is not about reaching a particular destination, but about how we walk each step. As you reflect on these teachings, take a moment to breathe deeply. Let go of the stories of comparison and judgment. Rest in the awareness of this moment. Trust in your path. Know that you are not alone, that you are supported by the Dharma, the Sangha, and the compassion of countless beings. May you find peace in your journey. May you trust in the unfolding of your life. And may you remember that in the eyes of the Buddha, you are never left behind. Sometimes the feeling of being left behind arises not only from comparing ourselves to others but also from the internal expectations we carry. These expectations may come from our upbringing, our culture, or even our own ideals about what life should look like. They may sound like silent voices in our minds. By this age, I should be more successful. I should have a partner by now. I should have found my purpose already. The Buddha understood this human tendency to cling to expectations. He taught that attachment to views and fixed ideas leads to suffering. When we hold tightly to ideas about how life should unfold, we create a narrow path for ourselves. Life, in its natural flow, is vast and unpredictable. It does not always follow the timelines or outcomes we imagine. When reality diverges from our expectations, suffering arises. The Buddha encouraged us to let go of rigid views and to meet life with openness. This openness is grounded in the understanding of impermanence. Everything in life is changing: our bodies, our circumstances, our relationships, and even our inner experiences. No state of being is permanent. When we truly grasp this, we loosen our grip on expectations. We begin to see that not meeting certain milestones by a particular time does not mean failure. It simply means life is unfolding differently than we imagined. In fact, many moments that seem like setbacks are opportunities for growth. Sometimes, not getting what we want forces us to look more deeply within, to discover strengths and insights we might not have otherwise found. The Buddha often taught that suffering can be a doorway to wisdom when met with mindfulness and compassion. When you feel left behind, try to ask yourself, what is this moment teaching me? What qualities of heart can I cultivate in this experience? Perhaps it is patience, humility, resilience, or compassion for yourself and others. Each moment, even those that feel disappointing, holds the potential for awakening. It is also important to recognize that progress is not always linear. The path of life, and the spiritual path, often moves in cycles. There are times of growth and times of stillness, times of clarity and times of confusion. The Buddha's teachings invite us to honor these natural rhythms. Just as the seasons change, so too does the flow of our lives. There may be times when you feel energized and inspired, making visible progress toward your goals. At other times, you may feel stagnant or lost. This is not a sign of failure, but part of the natural ebb and flow. In these moments, the practice is to stay present, to meet your experience with kindness, and to trust in the unfolding of your path. One helpful perspective is to shift from a focus on outcomes to a focus on presence. Rather than measuring success by what you achieve, consider the quality of awareness and compassion you bring to each moment. Are you meeting life with an open heart? Are you acting with kindness? Are you being mindful of your thoughts and emotions? When you live with presence and integrity, you are already walking the path of awakening. The outward markers of success may come or go, but the cultivation of a wise and compassionate heart is a treasure that cannot be lost. The Buddha often reminded his followers that inner peace is not dependent on external conditions. It is found in how we relate to the conditions of our lives, whatever they may be. Another teaching the Buddha emphasized is the importance of contentment. In a world that constantly urges us to strive for more, contentment is a radical practice. It is not about complacency or giving up on growth, but about appreciating what is here now. When we cultivate contentment, we ease the restless craving that fuels the feeling of being left behind. Contentment arises when we recognize the blessings in our lives, however small they may seem. The breath in your body, the warmth of the sun, the kindness of a friend, these are moments of grace. When we attune to them, we begin to see that life is already abundant. The more we rest in contentment, the less we feel the need to compare or compete. This does not mean we stop aspiring or growing. The Buddha encouraged us to cultivate wholesome aspirations, desires that lead to freedom and well-being. The key is to hold these aspirations lightly. Without attachment to outcomes, we can strive for goodness, wisdom, and compassion while accepting that the path may unfold in unexpected ways. In this spirit, it is helpful to view life as a journey of learning rather than a race to be won. Each experience, pleasant or painful, is an opportunity to deepen understanding. The Buddha taught that wisdom arises through direct experience, through meeting life fully and with awareness. When we see each moment as a teacher, we release the need to be anywhere other than where we are. It is also important to acknowledge that the feeling of being left behind often carries with it a deep sense of isolation. We may feel that others cannot understand our struggles, or that we are alone in our experiences. The Buddha's teachings remind us that suffering is universal. Every being, in their own way, faces challenges, doubts, and disappointments. When we recognize this, we can open our hearts to compassion, not only for ourselves but for others. The practice of compassion, or karuna, invites us to connect with the shared humanity of all beings. When we remember that we are not alone in our struggles, the burden of feeling left behind begins to lighten. The Buddha also spoke of the importance of wise friendship. Spiritual friends, or kalyanamitta, can offer support, encouragement, and perspective. They can remind us of our innate worth, especially when we forget it ourselves. They can help us see the larger view when we become entangled in self-judgment. If you find yourself struggling with feelings of being left behind, consider reaching out to a trusted friend, teacher, or community. Sharing your experience can bring relief and open the door to greater understanding. You may discover that others have walked similar paths and that your feelings, while painful, are part of the shared fabric of life. Finally, the Buddha would remind us of the importance of trust. Trust in the path, trust in the Dharma, and trust in your own unfolding. Sometimes we cannot see the larger picture. Life may feel confusing or stagnant, but beneath the surface, growth is happening. Seeds planted through our intentions, efforts, and aspirations are taking root. Trust does not mean passive waiting. It means continuing to walk the path with patience and perseverance, even when the way is unclear. It means remembering that life unfolds in its own time and way, often in ways we cannot predict. The Buddha encouraged us to develop this trust, to meet each moment with openness and faith. As you reflect on these teachings, take a moment to breathe. Release the weight of comparison. Let go of the need to be anywhere other than where you are. Trust in the wisdom of your path. Remember that you are not alone. You are part of a vast web of beings, all moving through life with their own joys and sorrows. In the eyes of the Buddha, there is no such thing as being left behind. There is only life, unfolding moment by moment, offering us endless opportunities for awakening. May you walk your path with courage, compassion, and trust, and may you know, in the depth of your being, that you are exactly where you need to be. As we continue to reflect on the experience of feeling left behind, it becomes clear that much of this suffering arises from the stories the mind creates. The Buddha often spoke about the power of perception and the way our thoughts shape our experience of reality. When we feel that life is passing us by, it is not the external world itself causing our pain but the narrative we are telling ourselves about it. The mind tends to grasp onto certain beliefs, that we should be further along, that others are happier or more successful, that time is running out. These thoughts can become deeply ingrained, repeating themselves like a loop in our consciousness. Over time, they create a sense of identity. We start to believe, I am someone who is falling behind, or I will never catch up. The Buddha taught that these identifications are not who we truly are. They are conditioned patterns of thought, arising from ignorance, craving, and fear. Through the practice of mindfulness and insight, we can begin to see these stories for what they are: impermanent, insubstantial, not self. When we bring awareness to these narratives, we loosen their grip on our hearts. One way to do this is through the practice of inquiry. When a painful thought arises, you can gently ask, is this true? Is this thought helpful? What would life feel like without this belief? In asking these questions with curiosity and kindness, we begin to create space between ourselves and our thoughts. We discover that we are not the stories we tell ourselves. We are the awareness that sees these stories arise and pass. The Buddha also taught the importance of understanding the three characteristics of existence: impermanence, suffering, and non-self. When we apply these insights to our feelings of being left behind, we see that this experience, like all experiences, is impermanent. It will change. It is not fixed or permanent. Likewise, we recognize that clinging to this feeling creates suffering. When we identify with it, when we resist it or try to push it away, we add layers of pain. But when we meet it with mindfulness and compassion, it softens. It becomes another passing wave in the ocean of experience. And finally, we see that this feeling is not who we are. It is not self. It is a conditioned mental state, arising due to causes and conditions. When we recognize this, we free ourselves from the trap of identification. We no longer have to carry the heavy burden of believing that something is wrong with us. Another profound teaching the Buddha offered is that of dependent origination. Everything arises in dependence on causes and conditions. Our feelings of being left behind are not personal failings. They are the result of countless factors: our past experiences, cultural influences, the stories we have absorbed, the habits of mind we have developed. When we understand this, compassion naturally arises. We see that we are not to blame for feeling this way. It is simply a part of the human condition. And because it is conditioned, it can also change. Through practice, through insight, through kindness, we can transform our relationship with these feelings. It is also helpful to remember that the spiritual path is not about reaching some fixed destination. The Buddha did not promise that life would always feel smooth or easy. Instead, he offered us a way to meet life's challenges with wisdom and compassion. In this way, every experience, even the painful ones, becomes part of our awakening. When we feel left behind, we can see it as an invitation to deepen our practice. We can ask, how can I bring more mindfulness to this moment? How can I meet myself with greater kindness? What can this experience teach me about impermanence, suffering, and non-self? In this way, the very feelings that once seemed like obstacles become stepping stones on the path. They help us cultivate the qualities the Buddha valued most: patience, compassion, wisdom, equanimity. It is also valuable to reflect on the vastness of time. From the perspective of the Dharma, life is not limited to this single lifetime. We have all lived countless lives before this one. We will continue to move through the cycles of birth and death until we awaken. When we see our life in this larger context, the urgency to keep up with others diminishes. We realize that there is no rush. Each moment is an opportunity to plant seeds of goodness, to cultivate wisdom, to open the heart. The fruits of these efforts may ripen in this life or in future lives. What matters is the intention and the sincerity of our practice. The Buddha encouraged us to take a long view, to be patient with ourselves and with life. He taught that spiritual progress is gradual, like the slow rising of the sun. It is not something we can force or control. It unfolds according to its own natural rhythm. In this spirit, we can learn to trust in our path, even when progress feels slow. Even when we feel lost or left behind, we can remember that the seeds we are planting will bear fruit. Every act of mindfulness, every moment of compassion, every breath taken with awareness is a step toward awakening. It is also important to honor our unique path. No two beings walk the same journey. Each of us has our own karmic inheritance, our own lessons to learn, our own gifts to share. When we compare ourselves to others, we lose sight of this uniqueness. We forget that each life is precious and irreplaceable. The Buddha taught that each being has Buddha nature, the potential for awakening. This is true no matter what stage of life we are in. No matter what challenges we face, our worth is not determined by how fast we progress or how much we achieve. It is intrinsic, rooted in our very nature. When we rest in this understanding, the need to compare fades. We can honor our own path and the paths of others. We can rejoice in the successes of others without feeling diminished. We can trust that our life is unfolding in exactly the way it needs to. Finally, the Buddha would remind us of the importance of present moment awareness. When we are caught in the feeling of being left behind, we are often lost in thoughts of the past or the future. We are imagining what could have been or worrying about what might be. But life is always happening now. Through mindfulness, we return to this moment. We anchor ourselves in the breath, in the body, in the simple reality of here and now. In this moment, there is no race, no competition, no need to be anywhere else. There is only life, unfolding as it is. When we meet this moment with presence and compassion, the burden of feeling left behind begins to dissolve. We realize that we are not behind at all. We are here, living this precious human life, with all its joys and sorrows, opportunities and challenges. As you continue on your path, may you remember these teachings. May you meet yourself with kindness. May you trust in the unfolding of your life. May you find peace in the present moment. And may you know, in the depth of your being, that you are never truly left behind.